So today I found out that a friend of mine died, and I'm going to tell you a story about that man. He was in his mid-90s, so he was not a young man. He lived a long and fascinating life. I was informed this today when I was speaking to a friend of mine who lives in Bratislava. He's a Czech, but he lives in Bratislava, which is the capital of Slovakia, and this is sort of the connection here. Because the man who died, his name was Martin Petrasek. Now, Martin Petrasek was not his real name. His name was Martin Friedman, and he was a Slovak Jew. He lived in Los Angeles after the war. He came to Southern California, and he got involved in making parking lots and became a very wealthy man as a result of this. But during World War II, in the 1940s, Martin was still a teenager. And when he was 14 or 15, living in his village in Slovakia, the Nazis rolled into town. And when they did, of course, they began to arrest everyone. And Martin's family got sent off to Auschwitz, and all but I believe one of them, his brother, I believe, survived, but all the rest of his family was killed at Auschwitz. And Martin very quickly came up with an idea, and the idea was he was going to lie to them about his skills, because the word was out that if you had some skills, you might be able to survive this. And so he claimed to be a skilled cabinet maker. And so they sent him to a concentration camp that was a work camp. You know, the Nazis used Jewish slave labor. And all these camps were terrible, of course. It's not like any of them were any good. It's just that some of them were designed specifically to kill people. Others, they used them as slave labor. And Martin was a really good soccer player as a kid. And the Nazi officer in charge of the concentration camp saw him playing soccer one day and decided to create a team to entertain the guards. Martin always claimed that this saved his life because they would occasionally come through and siphon people off and send them off to death camps. Eventually, Martin escaped from the camp, though. Now, when he escaped from the camp, he became a Slovak partisan. Now, I think you're all aware that there were things like the French resistance, like Albert Camus, for example, famously was part of the French resistance, but all of the countries that were occupied by the Nazis had resistance movements in them, and the one in Slovakia was the Slovak partisans. Now, what they would do is, because they understood their country obviously more than the Germans did, is they would hide in the mountains or hide in the forest or hide in the hills, and they would pick the Germans off when they were going by in their troop transports or when they were walking on the street or whatever it was. And of course, if they had been caught, they would have been killed immediately. And towards the end of the war, I remember Martin was a teenager when this was going on. Towards the end of the war, almost the war's over, they were up in the mountains and they came across a cave. And in this cave, there was a Jewish family that was hiding. And they told him, the war's over. You made it. Everything's fine. And the man who was the father in this little family told Martin this story, which was this. He said that one day they were hiding in the cave and they heard a troop transport going by on the road. So the road was coming up the side of the mountain like this, and they saw the troop transport, which is a truck filled with Nazi soldiers, coming up the side of the hill. And the father said, everybody has to get inside. We have to hide. So everybody goes inside and hides, and then they hear the truck stop out near the front of the cave. And the father says, okay, well, this is it. We're caught. Say goodbye and make sure you're ready to go because this is going to be it. And the father walks outside and he sees these guys getting out of the truck and a German officer coming towards him. And the German officer walks up to him and he says, let me see your papers. And he takes his papers out and hands him the papers. And of course, the papers say that he's a Jew. And the officer's looking at this. And this is towards the end of the war. And the officer looks at him, hands back the papers. Okay, have a nice day. And he lets him go. That should give you hope.